Okay, so the justice warrior stood up. The judge asked her, "So how do you find the defendant?" She stood up and she looked at him and she said, "Not guilty." The wave of emotion washed over my body. I genuinely felt like I'd just been hit by a wave. I had a rushing in my ears. I looked at the ceiling in the court. I was just like, fuck. It had gone in my favour. The court had believed my side of the events, and it was very difficult to prove the intent of GBH if you haven't swung the weapon, if you haven't gone in there telling them you're going to fuck them up if you catch them. So the jury had believed my side of the events, and I'd been given a not guilty. Now this changed things massively, because now all I was facing was an ABH charge, which was a maximum of 3 years in prison. I'd already done about 6 months or so waiting to go to trial, so I wouldn't have that long left to do. I looked around the court. My girlfriend and her dad were sort of sat there looking happy. I looked over to the side and saw the drug dealer that I'd gone to rob and his girlfriend sat there, and I really wanted to just blow him a kiss or do something really cocky, but I didn't. I held back from that, and I'm glad I did, because it never works out well for you. You always end up getting more time for that sort of shit in the end. I went back down with the security guard back down to the cells, because again I'm still on remand for the ABH charge, so I've got to go back to prison and get another date to be sentenced for that. The security guard that's walking me down the stairs calls over to the other guard that's doing the admin on the desk, and shouts out, "Not guilty." And even she laughed and kind of said, "What?" And she was just like, "Yeah, not guilty." Even they thought I was going to get a guilty that day. Now at this time, the prison system was full. The prison system in the UK has got a capacity of around 80,000 odd, and at that point they were at it on a daily basis. Now, even though my cell had all my stuff in it still, it was my cell, the courts, you're supposed to take all your stuff out from a remand prison down to the courts every day, but when you know you're coming back, you don't bother, and the staff don't ask you to, because they know you're coming back. But they count you as a full bed. So when the courts are ringing up saying, "We've got 3 more to bring up," Exeter was saying, "No, we're full." So even though my space was waiting for me, the courts were saying, the prison was saying that they weren't accepting any more people. So I had to go to Launceston Police Station that night. I spent the night there. The only upside to that was that they dished out a pasty for dinner. It was the first time I'd had a pasty in a while, so that was the only upside to staying in a police station that night. The next morning, there was space in the prison, so I went back up and went back to my old cell. My cellmate, the Manchester gangster, thought I'd got a walkout from prison because I hadn't come back. So I think he'd eaten a couple of my packs of noodles, and was kind of sitting there. But he was surprised to see me. But I went back to my old cell again. Now, obviously, I'm not in any interest to escape now. And his case had progressed a little bit as well, because he ended up moving cells for a little bit. He was sharing a cell with somebody else, and I can't remember why. But while he was in the cell with that other lad, I think it was because he had a mobile phone. That was it. Yeah, this other lad had a mobile phone. So he went and stayed in a cell with him for a bit, and he was in because he got caught with a gun. Somewhere he used to live, they found a gun hidden in the water tank. So while he had that phone, he got hold of the landlord, and he threatened him, which wasn't a smart thing to do. So the police came to the prison to do a search, because they thought he was dangerous and they thought he had a mobile. So they came and searched the cell. They didn't find anything, but he was a risky character to be around. And I'm glad in the end that the escape plan never came off, because I don't think for one second that he would have been someone that you'd want to be on the run with. I don't think I could 100% trust him. Now, trust is a massive thing in prison. There was always the risk of, especially if you're sharing a cell with someone, because while you're out of the cell, you never know if they're going through your letters. They could be taking the addresses of your loved ones. That sort of thing is a real risk in prison, that suddenly someone tells you that there's a car parked outside your house, and unless you do something or unless you pay something, that something's going to be done to one of your loved ones. And, you know, serious crooks and serious gangsters will do that kind of stuff. It's not very often, but it can happen. And as you go up the levels in crime, you end up mixing with some people that will go to those kind of extremes to make sure that control is kept. So now, right, we're back in Exeter. I've only got a few months to do, really, until my next court date. Things are looking up. I'm kind of really in the mindset now, because I know the most they can give me is 3 years. Like I say, I'll do 18 months of that. So in reality, I've got less than a year left to go, and I'm out. So I'm happy, really. This is going to be a walk in the park compared to some of the other sentences I've done. I shouldn't even have to mess around with the parole board, which is something I've had to do on all my other sentences. So yeah, I should be out soon. Now the only problem is I've still got a bit of my license left to do, so it'll be dependent whether they give me, you know, my license as well on top of my sentence, or do they give me my license run concurrently. So that's the only thing I've got to watch out for, which is something they can do. So what I'm talking about is I haven't finished fully my last sentence yet. I'm still on that license period, and they can make you do all of that license period first and then start the new sentence. But what I'm hoping is that they run them side by side, so that I do my license and the new ABH charge at the same time. So that's still the only thing that can trip me up on this. So what I'm doing now, we're just waiting at Exeter. Now Exeter is still quite a cushy little place for me at the moment. I've got a gym orderly job, so from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, I'm sat down at the gym, and all I've got to do is run a few circuits, clean up a bit. I'm training every day, so I'm still in good shape and nice and strong. There's a good bunch of us down the gym. There was a Welsh lad called Ozzy. He was a big lad. Good fun to be around. He just liked heroin, which is his only downside. So occasionally he'd disappear for a week or two, and you'd find him in his bed all day, every day. But he was a good lad. There was another little Scouse lad down there called Wes. He was the last remaining Scouser that was from the gang. He was a cocky little fuck, but he was a good little lad to be around as well. And we used to have a good laugh between us. The only thing I hated about being a gym orderly in Exeter Prison is being a referee for the football sessions, or any of the sessions, to be honest. I've nearly got into fights over the basketball down there, to be honest with you. Basketball is a difficult game to referee. In real life, there'll be about 6 referees for a basketball match, I don't know. And they expect you to referee it on your own, because the staff don't want to do it either, because most people don't understand the rules of any game they're playing in prison. So it always ends up in a free-for-all. I've had to send kids off before, the little shitheads, when I was in Portland, because I was a gym orderly in Portland as well. The little shitheads down there, because they knew they couldn't get extra days. I'm talking about the under-18s, couldn't get extra days at that point. I don't know what it's like now. So if you got a 6-month sentence, you just did that time and then you got out regardless. So these little shitheads would be fighting all the time, and I sent one of them off, and he just kind of looked at me and was like, "Oh, is that red card, is it? I might as well make it worth it then." So he just went and started just punching this lad in the face. And I'm just stood back and like, whoa, what the fuck? And then suddenly all the staff come running on the pitch and things. But yeah, it wouldn't be that different when you're refereeing the older lads as well, because everyone wants to be Ronaldo. No one wants to be, a goalkeeper or a defender. So everyone's all falling out with each other, you've got to enforce these rules and things. But anyway, yeah, it's people have ended up coming to my cell in the morning wanting to fight me because I've sent them off in the football before. So it can be really risky, and I hated refereeing the football matches. But other than that, being a gym orderly was an absolutely sound job, and I loved every bit of it. And it's the fittest you've ever been. But yeah, it did have its downsides as well, as people wanted to come and murder you in your bed in the morning. So yeah, my life was good. I was still getting drugs thrown over the wall because I was local, and my friends had got good at it. You know, they knew where to go and where to come to sort of throw stuff over. It was quite easy for me to hook a bag of weed over and pull it up into my cell in the morning. So yeah, it was a nice easy time for me. I was getting high and just sitting around watching telly quite a lot. Telly is massive in prison because obviously it's the only thing you get to do, telly and listening to the radio. It gets so bad that you can switch on the telly at any time of day and you know what time it is by, you know, whether Homes Under the Hammer's on or, you know, whatever crap daytime TV is on. But yeah, it's all you get to do in prison during the day. Sleep, obviously, as much as you can. But yeah, daytime telly becomes massive. Now, when it comes round to being sentenced again for the ABH, I go down to Truro Crown Court. I'm quite happy because I know that I've done a big part of whatever sentence they're going to give me already. When I get down there, my solicitor's happy. Everything's going as planned. We get up into the dock. We plead guilty to the ABH because, you know, funnily enough, the copper that I punched is the only one that picked me out of the lineup. So when you stand up the charge on its own, there's no real case for me to be able to plead not guilty to it. So yeah, I said I pushed the copper. The copper said I punched them. The judge obviously went with the copper. The copper even said that he had dreams about me. He said that he dreamt that I'd kicked my way into their house and jumped on me and was pulled away. Every time someone pulled me away and the copper got up, then I jumped on them again. And yeah, that was all read out in court. So it sounded like I was, proper, even in their dreams I was tormenting them. So what the judge handed out, now obviously the judge was aware that I'd just gotten away with not getting a life sentence for the intent of GBH burglary. So what they did is they gave me what they call an EPP, which is an extended for public protection prison sentence, which I had known nothing about, which is basically, they gave me, what did they give me? They gave me 2 years for the ABH plus the 8 months of my license that I hadn't done. So essentially I had 2 years, 8 months. So I still ended up with, because they didn't want me to be able to appeal the ABH, so they still gave me the small ABH sentence. But this EPP meant that I had to do half of it before I could be worthy of parole. But I had to do all of the 8 months. So I'd still end up doing a while yet. And I had to go for parole again. Even though it was such a small sentence, I'd still have to go for parole. So that kind of sucked. So, yeah, as soon as I got back to Exeter, I made my way back to Dartmoor. I really like Dartmoor as a prison. I'm sorry to hear that it's actually closing down. It's weird. I've been back there since. I feel weirdly drawn to Dartmoor. If anybody ever goes to Dartmoor, I put up the fence, the wooden fence across the road. So if you're ever there, or if you want to have a look on Google Maps, there's a 2-bar wooden fence across the road from it. I put that up. It should have taken about 3 weeks, and we dragged it out for about 8 or 9 weeks, because it was sunny. Yeah, I went back down to Dartmoor again. Ended up back in the carpentry workshop because the guy in the workshop actually quite liked me, and ended up doing all the kind of bespoke projects down there. So other prison staff and things would come in asking for dining room tables and cabinets and bedroom furniture and stuff to be made, and he'd get me and this other lad making it for him. and we get paid a bit extra for that. And I just kind of rid out the rest of my time down there, trying to kill the time. My girlfriend's long gone. Some of my pals are still there. Everyone knows I've been down the resettlement wing and I've fucked it up, and I've come back up to the, I'm back in the main population again. I've still got some friends from there when I was there before, but I'm doing nothing this time. I've got nothing. I've got no money coming in. I've any money that I've ever made on the outside is all gone. I spend it. It's just as quick as I ever make it. I've got no connections to kind of do anything for me at the moment. And then suddenly I get a letter from my brother saying that he's messed up on his on his own. I'm saying it was an open prison. It wasn't. It was a commercial prison. So these are privately run prisons that are built by companies, and they plonk them sort of in the middle of nowhere. But they get, whereas most normal prisons in the UK have got prison staff that are trained well and they go through rigorous training, and a lot of them will be ex-army or ex-police or something like this, and they get a job in the prison service. But you'll find a lot of these commercial ones, these private prisons, will be run by numpties who, these guys have been bus drivers, a few weeks ago, and now they're suddenly being thrown in with Category B prisoners or Category A prisoners, because obviously the higher category that the prison is, I imagine you probably get more money from the government for running the prison. So my brother was up in a Category B prison at this point. He'd just been done for, well, he'd not just been done, but he was in on a 9-year sentence for tying up a heroin dealer and torturing him in our town. So when he found out that I was back in Dartmoor again, he wanted to come back down this way because he'd messed up. He had quite a cushy little number up there. He was working in the kitchens, and he'd ended up shagging the female member of staff up there. She obviously fell for his charms. And again, because she's a private member of staff, she was a few months ago she's probably working in catering somewhere, and then she ends up getting thrown into a prison. And it's easily done. It happens all the time. But yeah, she got caught shagging him, and her husband worked in the prison also, so it ruined her marriage. But he was going to get transported out of the prison, so he picked Dartmoor, and he came down to Dartmoor to come and spend some time down with us. I was on, what wing was I on? I can't even remember what wing it was now. Was it B wing? Yeah, I think I was on B wing. Yeah, because C and D, D was the induction wing at that time, and C was empty. So it must have been A and B on the other wing. I think I was on B wing, and my brother went over onto A wing. Now, I was in with a good little bunch of lads, and we were upstairs, one of the enhanced landing, so we're out a lot of the time. And I really got into playing poker. Now, the guys I got into playing poker with, one of them was a complete fucking cheat, and he was so good at it that he could give you a pair of kings, and you'd go all in, knowing full well that someone else had got a pair of aces, and he just lost everything. So he was good enough to not only give you good cards, but someone else better cards. So whenever he was dealing, I always made sure I kept myself out. But it was good fun playing with them. And we'd bet on absolutely anything. We'd bet on drips running down a window. We also, when we weren't working, we'd be just winding up the staff. It was just good fun. Anything we could think of to wind them up. I remember one day we sat there bored, so we covered my mate's cell. We can see the female member of staff coming round, going cell to cell, just checking that the lights are working and the bells are, all working, and the bars aren't being chewed through. So one of my pals wasn't in that day, so we his cell door was open, and we covered his cell in porn and put tissues all over the floor. Looked like he'd been, masturbating all day, and just left it there, waiting for her to come round. And as soon as she opened the door, she kind of looked at us and knew we'd done it. There was another day when there was an electrician working on the wing. Again, we just sat there bored. Again, we've got hours every day to try and amuse ourselves. So, you get bored quickly. So we literally just sat there doing nothing, just watching this electrician doing his thing. So when he goes into the cell, we run along and pick up his toolbox, and we took it down to my other mate's cell, and we just threw it on his bed.
We come back out again, and the electrician's come out. He looks around looking for it. He can't find it, so he's got to go off down to the office now and tell him that, you know, his toolbox has been nicked. Which is obviously embarrassing for him, but a massive problem for the prison. Thinking about it, it's a massive problem for the prison, thinking there's a toolbox gone missing. Now my mate comes back, whose bed it's on, and we tell him that the toolbox that they're looking for is on his bed, so he better go. He needs to go in there and go and get it back. And just as he runs into his cell to go and get it, we now slam the door. So now he's locked in there with this toolbox. And yeah, so he's panicking. So he quickly rings his bell, and obviously I would have been sweating a bit more, but he just kicked it under his bed, and the officer opened his door, and we went and put the toolbox back. Now it sounds a bit childish, it sounds a bit stupid, but yeah, that's the kind of shit that we used to keep ourselves amused with. You know, funny for us, potentially escape attempt for the guy that we're fucking with. And, you know, the electrician could probably lose his job for losing his toolbox. But yeah, we just didn't give a shit. You know, I remember when the members of staff sometimes would be sat there with a newspaper hanging out the back of their pocket, and you'd walk along and you'd just set fire with a lighter to just the tip of the newspaper. And again, it sounds ridiculous, but yeah, someone would always tell them before they went up in flames. But yeah, they'd sit there smoking like a candle. A little bit. So yeah, my brother ended up down, and I reluctantly moved from one wing to the other so I could go, and I ended up in the cell next door to him. And he introduced me to his little mates that he'd made on that wing, and again they had a little drinking club. So the first thing we did is we got pissed that weekend. Now I hadn't had any alcohol in a while now, and yeah, one bottle of this hooch they made got me absolutely mangled. And I had another bottle to take back to my cell that night, and I remember drinking it the rest of the night, and I couldn't see straight. I threw up. I was hungover the next morning. Prison hooch is no joke. It'll get you effed up. Genuinely, it's so easy to make as well. It's just getting caught with it is the problem, because it takes about a week to brew. But it's getting caught with it is it's going to land you in trouble. But when you're up on the enhanced landing, and the good thing about them not having many staff now is that if you keep your head down and stay out of trouble, they don't search your cell too hard. You can keep it smelling fresh, and they don't, you can get away with it. It's the harder drugs they're looking for, the heroin, and now I suppose they're looking for the, what's that fucking stuff called? The zombie stuff. I can't even fucking think. They had the cheat to call it synthetic fucking weed when it first came out. It's nothing like that. I can't even think what it's called now. It's shit anyway. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff they're looking for. So they never really gave a fuck about us drinking. We didn't get into any trouble. But yeah, we had our drinking club back up and going again. So all I've got to do now is just this whole 2 years, 8 months. I didn't get parole in the end when it came to it, again, because I've broken every bit of trust they've ever given me. I didn't get my parole. So for this one punch, as I'm running out of the door of the drug dealer's house, I ended up doing 2 years, 8 months in prison. I think it was like 2 years, 9 months, all in all, in prison. It was the longest bit of time I've ever done for the smallest, most insignificant crime I'd ever done. It gave me time to reflect, though. It gave me time to really sort my head out, because I was getting more and more time for less and less actual crimes. And again, the last 2 times I've spent in prison now, I've had zero reward for. Out of all the crimes I do on a daily basis, and all the crimes I was doing every day, the stuff I was actually going to prison for was a zero monetary basis for the last nearly 5.5 years now, or 4.5 years in prison was for zero money. So this is something I had to really sort my life out with. So I made sure that when it came to time to getting out of prison this time, I'd saved up a little bit of money, although it was nothing like I wasn't earning any money in prison. I just wasn't spending any money in prison, so I'd saved up a couple of £100 to get out with. It came round to my release day. I was going back home to Cornwall again. I left my brother. I had to get out to a new start. Hopefully, this would be different, but fuck knows. It's always been the same before.